And good morning. It is Tuesday, October 22nd, just after 10 a.m. My name is Ryan Belmore, owner and publisher of What's Up Noop. And we are continuing our conversations with the candidates. About 2 weeks ago, we wrapped up all of our Newport City Council, Newport School Committee. Those are all available on whatsupnoop.com. And now we're picking off candidates as they have availability and can step off the campaign trail or whatever it may be to join us, to chat with us. And some of those candidates we are talking to are running unopposed. So that's why we kind of put them on the tail end and talk to everybody who's running against somebody else on the other end. Representative Lauren Carson, who represents the great city of Newport, joins us. Rep, how are you?
Good morning. I'm fine. Thank you, Ryan. Good to see you.
Good to see you. And looking at your bio on the General Assembly, I'm surprised that you have the time to chat with us. Deputy Majority Leader, Second Vice Chair of House Innovation, Internet and Technology Committee. I'm going to mention all this in case we go somewhere, and I think it will tie into why you know about some of the things we're talking about. Second Vice Chair, House Environment and Natural Resource Committee, House Oversight Committee, House Small Business Committee. That's a whole lot.
Yes, and I chair a subcommittee of oversight on arts, recreation, and tourism.
Look at that. So it's a little bit of everything.
And I have 2 study commissions, which I'm sure we'll get into. So.
Yeah, how I've written about them several times, and I'm sure we will touch on them. Obviously, this is a different type of campaign season when you don't have a competitor or somebody challenging you. What has it been like?
Well, I'm really fortunate that I don't have an opponent. I think that one of the reasons that my candidacy is so strong, one of the reasons that I think that my constituents support me is because I place a very high emphasis on constituent services. I think that that is really the number one job. I often say that, my constituents don't know how I vote on every bill, the hundreds of bills we vote on, but they do know if I don't return their phone call. And they will remember that. And they will go to a party and say, she never returned my telephone call. And they will tell 10 people, and then they will tell 10 people. And before you know it, it's a couple hundred votes. And my constituents are always happy when I call them back, send them an email, fix their tax bill, get DMV to fix their license, whatever the situation is. So I think that that's one of the key reasons that I run unopposed. What it's been like is, it's on some level, it's very rewarding. I feel like I'm doing a really good job, and I'm grateful for folks for recognizing the hard work that I put into this job. I have, still mailed, still doing an interview with you, still out there in the community, wherever I can be, and still available to folks. So.
Yeah, and I want to give you credit because, I have reached out to other unopposed candidates, and they're like, oh, why would I chat with you? So I do want to give you credit where actually I think you pursued me over the last couple of weeks.
Of course. I truly believe I think it's the most important part of the job. I really do.
You were first elected in 2000.
10 years ago.
10 years ago. Is
right.
It flying by, or is it?
Yes, it's pretty unbelievable. I think back, time flies, right? Particularly as we age, it goes faster and faster. And it's a constant learning curve. I do really believe that you get on this train to be a legislator or to govern at whatever, state, whatever level of government you govern at. And it's a constant learning curve. I'm still learning things. I can see in my own performance that I'm better at certain things. I'm better at negotiating. I know more people. I'm able to bring more relationships to the table. To some extent, I understand that people shouldn't serve for 20 and 30 years. I understand that. But on the other hand, I also have seen in my own experience that the longer I'm there, the more effective I can be, because I have a stronger understanding of the issues and the history of the issues. I know more people, and my negotiating skills have improved. So that's what I've sort of learned over the past 10 years.
And it seems like with some of the committees that you do sit on, as well as the other subcommittees, that they are effective and they are useful for the city of Newport.
Without a doubt. I mean, environment is very important. Every January I do a survey of my constituents, and I ask maybe 2 or 3 environmental issues, and they come up in the 80s and 90% of the recipients. And I usually get over 100 to 150, so it's statistically significant. And environment questions are over the top. They're at 80, 90% of the community cares about that stuff. They care about waste. They care about climate. They care about stormwater management. They care about composting, recycling. They care about all, parks, open parks, Brenton Point, Fort Adams, Harbor. Well, those are all fundamentally environmental questions. I do chair the subcommittee on arts, recreation, and tourism was created 4 years ago. Representative Shikarchi, House Speaker, created several subcommittees of oversight. That I don't use that as much as I would like to. I have a few ideas for next year. It would be up to me to call in. I kind of like oversight. We don't really hear any legislation in oversight. We just examine issues. And I kind of like being on that committee. I think it really gives the members insight into the way state government functions. And it's really more of an educational ride than a political ride. And then small business. I've owned small business. I have a master's in business. I've always enjoyed small business for years. That committee is not as active as I would like it to be. Many of the business related issues either go to the corporations committee or they go to finance. But we do take on some issues. And then internet, which was really the brainchild of former Representative Deborah Giro, because she was really a student of that. And she was the first chair of that committee when it was created 4 years ago. And I sort of sit in the background in that. And I kind of watch AI, which I think is an issue for that committee to pay close attention to, and would like to see us be more active on that.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in that field right now.
Yes, there is.
Did we just hit on all the committees, or was there one more?
No, that's it. Business, environment, oversight, and internet.
Wondering, some of the things that you're hearing during your survey and some of the things you're hearing from constituents, is it all the same topics and all the same hit points that you're hearing during this election season?
I think that Newport voters are more preoccupied with the municipal races than they are with the state races at this time. I think that, there's a couple really good election fights going on right now, which I think is pretty healthy for the community. And I think that's where all the emphasis has been. I think that with respects to my work, people are just saying, stay on it, keep doing what you're doing. And I've been hearing a few issues around town, but not a lot. Not really a lot. I've heard there's some things going on down at Brenton Point State Park. There's some strategic planning going on with DEM down there. And that's really not related to elections. That's just an administrative issue. And really, I'm starting to work with the Waterfront Commission again. I've been working with them for 2 years on trying to enable municipalities to have more governance ability over houseboats. And so I'm starting to kick up my work with them. But there's nothing really pressing coming out of the community right now.
Did that come out of the it was in front of City Council once or twice?
Yeah, they passed a resolution last year to support the bill.
Yeah, the Airbnb, or I hate using particular business names, the short-term rental.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the issues with houseboats. There are other issues with houseboats. The first thing is that there's a set of definitions across public policy. They're not the same. CRMC has one, state law has one, DEM has one, the Coast Guard has one. So there's not really one definition defining exactly what a houseboat is. A houseboat is a house. Let's tell it like it is. You live on a houseboat, right? So that's one of the first things we're trying to work through right now as we speak. Like, let's come up with some kind of a definition that makes sense. So there's a concern about expansion of short-term rentals onto the water. That's happened in other places around the country. Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, Miami, Seattle. We can barely manage them on the land. We don't know what will happen if they go onto the water. But there's other issues. There's inspections. There's safety. There's municipal resources that need to be deployed on the water. There really are a set of issues around there. So I'm hoping this year we have a work group of people that's working on that. CRMC, DEM, the Newport, Narragansett, and North Kingstown waterfront commissions, as well as the Rhode Island Marine Trades Association and the League of Cities and Towns. So I'm hoping this year we can come to some kind of conclusion on that.
Give us a recap of the last session. What do you want people to know? What was accomplished? What do you think people should know about your
Well,
last.
that's a good point. There's so many things. I didn't pull that up to prepare for this. Geez, I don't know.
I could change it another way. And what do you think the priorities are going into the next session?
Well, for Joe Shikarchi, it's always housing, so we'll continue working on housing. The budget is going to be a challenge. It was a challenge this past year. It was a challenge because, we had, when we used the federal COVID money, the leadership in the House was very specific that we attempt not to spend it on reoccurring expenses in the budget. That way we wouldn't be hit with a cliff when the money dried up. But nonetheless, some money did dry up. So I think we're still feeling the consequences of that. And we really got to watch the economy closely to make sure that the tax revenue is coming in. And we'll know more next month. I think in November is when the Finance Committee does its first look under the covers at finances and looks at income and does a comparison of budgets to actual kinds of things. So that comes out sometime around the middle of November. My colleague, Chair Abney, will be very engaged in that next month. So we get the first read on how the budget's going in a public presentation. I think there's that. I mean, climate continues to be a top priority. I think, there's, geez, I don't even know where to start. There's so many things over there. Because there's several of us that don't have any opponents. And so as a result of that, we're trying to get ourselves organized for the new session. And it's been hard because some people are engaged in their campaigns. There's a small group of us from the East Bay that focus on climate issues, and a couple from around the state. And there's about 7 of us, and we can't seem to get more than 3 on a Zoom call. So I think that, in an election year, we sort of get started a little late on the legislative priorities. We have the ability to start writing bills in about a month. Right around Thanksgiving is when the Ledge Council, the lawyers in the basement of the State House that write our bills, that's when they're authorized to begin working with us. So in about 3 to 4 weeks, we'll all start going in, meeting with them and drafting bills. And then when we go back to session, because it's a new session following an election, one of the first things that we generally take up is rules. Every 2 years at the beginning of a new session, the Rules Committee meets and really reviews our operational style, makes some changes in the way we function. And that's a big part of the first 2 months of the session. So that's kind of what we're looking forward to. So where I'm at is what I do at this time of year is pull up all my bills from last year, look at the ones that passed, look at the ones that didn't pass, look at the ones that have no chance, and look at the ones that I want to fix and reintroduce, and then go start meeting with Ledge Council. And then I have a list of bills that I'm already starting to look at. So that's what we do between October and December. And, on another note on that, I consider that we have to get all our bills in the House introduced by the last Tuesday in February. And then after that, we have the option for 3 more bills. And we can always introduce any municipal bill if it has a town or city council resolution. So most of the bills are introduced by the end of February. So those 2 months are like writing term papers. That's what I call it. Imagine writing like 15 term papers on climate and water and, houseboats and energy and schools and whatever, so that's how it's a lot of work the first 2 months, because you're meeting with stakeholders and you're trying to negotiate language. That's a very hard part of the job.
I'm wondering, because let's see, 10 years. So we're what, four times you've sat down with municipal leadership and came up with legislative priorities.
Every year we do that. Every year.
I'm sorry.
Every year.
Yeah.
And I'm an advocate of meeting as soon as possible in January.
Yeah.
And I just saw some members for city council, and I was like, the first 2 weeks of January, get us in the door as soon as possible. Because once the session has traction, it's really, things are competing for people's times. The other thing that I'm an advocate for, if there's any city council or candidates watching, I think we should meet again in May, because things happen between January and May. The city council has new priorities. Bills come and go, bills begin to move. And I would love to meet again as we enter that final stretch, the last 6 weeks, so that we could be on the same page.
Yeah. Were there more asks on this last 2 years? I know that the city council now has a
Lobbyist.
part-time lobbyist. Did it change at all from a city? Did it working with the city? Has it changed at all in the last year or two?
I would say the last 2 years, well, this year particularly, I've always had a good relationship with the city council. Whatever they need, they pass a resolution, and that's what they want. I put it in. Marvin and I put it in. That's our job. But this year they were really focused, and I really, really appreciated that. And having the lobbyists, I know there was a controversial decision they made, and I saw things online like, well, that's what we pay the representatives to do. Well, having that professional lobbyist in the room is very helpful. Providence has one, Block Island has one, Middletown has one, Cranston has one. And given the stature of this city, not only in this state, but in this region, we really need additional professional support here. So, and they were great. The guys were great to work with. They would be working the room for me. They would be talking to the Senate. They'd come back and tell me what was going on. One of the particular bones of contention was getting the money in the green bond for the cliff walk. And that the city had requested $10 million for that. And that didn't look like it was going to happen. There was some criticism of that, and I lobbied hard for that and worked with the two guys really hard. And we did get $3 million into the green bond. So it wasn't everything we were looking for, but we got something, and they really helped get that over the finish line. I got to tell you that.
More hands make light work, I guess.
Yes, yes.
What do you see coming down the line? I mean, talking to all these candidates on the municipal level, city level, everybody's talking about housing. Everybody's talking about education, cost of living. You see anything coming from the State House down the line here in the next session?
Yeah, I got to tell you, I don't know yet, Ryan. I really don't. I think we got to get through this election. I mean, there's so much uncertainty, right, at the federal level. That's going to impact budgets. I mean, there's just uncertainty. So I really don't know. And, I think, like I said, I think people are not quite getting their priorities in order yet. They're busy campaigning. So we're not quite there yet, I don't think. We do have a series of study commissions that are working. And so study commissions generally suggest what the policy discussions are going to be. So those are areas. There's one on climate change that Rep. Cortvan has. There's the two that I have, aging and short-term rentals. There's the bottle bill, which we haven't resolved yet. There's one on landlord-tenant laws. There's probably a good 10 of them, at least, if not 15. So that's a suggestion that those issues are going to be debated. And they're all on the state website. You can go to rhodeislandlegislature.gov, and at the top it says commissions, and then you hit that. All the commissions will be there. And then, of course, there's Chair June Speakman's commission on housing. So all those folks are meeting now and working on policy as we speak. But people can go and look at all of those study commissions. And like I said, there is a suggestion that some of those things could become policy discussions in the full chamber.
Kudos to whoever put together the newer website, by the way.
Yeah.
General Assembly. It is great to work with, and it almost seems like we might be up to the year 2024.
Yeah, we're not quite there yet. We have a few more suggestions on that, but yeah, it's better.
Yeah. What else, Rep, is happening that people should know about?
Well, I think the two important things that I'm working on now are my two study commissions. In 2023, the House created by resolution 2 study commissions. And I always explain to people that study commissions have a beginning and an end, and they have a specific assignment, and they have a specific set of people on it that are generally stakeholders or experts in the subject matter, so that all voices are represented. And so I have one on short-term rentals, subject near and dear to the people in Newport, and I have one on aging policy. And they were extended to next year. So I have another year on both of those. I think the short-term rental one may be resolved sooner, but the aging one does need all of its time. And so on the short-term rental one, Mayor Zai is on it, because we did bring a few mayors on it. He is on it. And we've studied a lot of things. We've looked at fire safety, fire inspections. We're meeting Thursday this week. We're looking at insurance, whether liability insurance is an issue. We've looked at 7 or 8 of the municipalities that have ordinances similar to the ordinances that Newport has. But Tiverton has one, Jamestown has one, Narragansett has one, Providence has one. We brought all the cities and towns in. We looked at the registration system. We looked at the taxation model and how that's working. We looked at zoning. We had Department of Planning come in and explain to us the zoning authority municipalities have to regulate short-term rentals. And so where we're at now is where we did fire. We had 2 sessions on fire safety, and we had the former Newport fire marshal come in, Bobby Default, who was wonderful. I mean, really, we should be really happy with what the Newport Fire Department is doing around fire safety and short-term rentals, leading the state without a doubt. And so where we move now, probably after the first of the year, is some kind of set of policy recommendations. So we still have work ahead of us. But and I think the key thing, particularly for the viewers here, is that there's state policy and municipal policy. They're 2 different avenues. They're parallel to each other. And so the way I think about it is, what authority does the state have? What issues are in the state's basket, and what do municipalities have? The municipality's strongest suit is clearly zoning. You know, they're authorized under state law and municipal ordinance to zone their communities, particularly in compliance with their comprehensive land use plans. And that's what Newport has done. They have zoned them. They have said in the business districts. Those are the things that will hold up to legal challenges in courts. Those are the authorities that the municipalities have. They don't necessarily have the authority to require insurance. They don't necessarily have the authority to require inspections. So we have to look at what's in the state bucket, what's in the municipal bucket, and proceed from there. So I think in the first, hopefully, I know that I'll have 1 bill next year on this. I'm not quite there yet on the substance, but I think we'll get there. And then maybe there'll be a little more to take care of. The second thing that I care about and been working on is aging. And I always credit Carmela Gear, director of the King House. She called me Christmas week 2 or 3 years ago, Christmas week, okay, and said, we need to talk about the way programs are delivered to senior citizens, aging Rhode Islanders. And I was like, Christmas week, this must be really important. And it became clear to me from what she told me that our programs for senior citizens are spread wide, and that sometimes they're difficult to navigate. And so as a result of those conversations, we created the House Study Commission on Aging Policy to make recommendations. And there are a variety of states around the country, Vermont, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island, our closest neighbors. And Connecticut, our closest neighbors. They've created master plans on aging. And I'm trying to model that. We've met other states. We brought the study commission on the road. We had a meeting in Newport in July. We met in South Kingstown last week. We looked at transportation. So we're looking at different issues. And my hope is next year that we will come out with some kind of guidance for a uniform plan as we move toward the year 2030, where there will be a lot more aging people. I mean, the phenomena is real. People are living longer. That's great. Our nursing homes are challenged. Resources are tight. And we have 250,000 over 60 in the state, 250,000. And we're about to pick up another 30 to 40 in the next 5 years. So it's an issue that we need to really take a serious look at. And it's kind of near and dear to my heart. And Carmela is on the study commission. So
yeah, I was going to say, do you need what do you need from voters, residents, constituents on either of those commissions? Just watch, pay attention, provide feedback.
Yeah, watch and pay attention. I think with respects to the aging one, we may need to do some surveying next year to see what priorities are after we sort of go through a variety of topics. We've looked at transportation, we've looked at housing, we've looked at internet, and because increasingly aging Rhode Islanders need to use the internet for a lot of things. I think that's a priority going forward. We looked at demographics. We looked at the Long-Term Care Coordinating Council. The one we had in South Kingstown, we looked at one that was really interesting, and I would suggest that voters go look at it if they're interested. And that was our September session in Warwick. And we looked at language, and we looked at culture and the way we talk about older Rhode Islanders. And we looked at, like a lot of people think, okay, they're old, they're in a nursing home bed. And that's not the case, and I'm hoping that one of the things the study commission do will be to change some thinking. The governor of Massachusetts put a bill in last year to change to go through their entire state statute, every statute, to change senior citizen to older Massachusetts. It changed. Wow. Yeah. And I thought, wow, we had a gentleman from the University of Rhode Island come on and talk about language and culture. And was a public session. We had about 60 people in the audience. How older people are spoken to and spoken about, and how can we change that so that we can have a little different sense of the kinds of needs they have. And it was a fascinating session, a fascinating session. So, you can go look at them. I think the short-term rental one, as I said, it's really important for people to realize that there's an avenue for municipal policy and an avenue for state policy. And I'm in the state policy lane. And I want them, because I don't want them to be disappointed if I can't ban short-term rentals in Newport, because that's not my lane, and I really want to make sure once you start thinking about it in those terms, it becomes easier to understand, like, okay, maybe requiring insurance statewide is a state policy.
Yeah.
Maybe the zoning part is a municipal issue. So that's a good way to think about it.
One thing people should keep in mind as well, paying attention to these meetings a little bit, is just because it's an issue in your community doesn't mean that another community has the same feelings or background. For example, I think there was one where Mayor Sy was up there talking on behalf of Newport for commission, but Block Island was also there.
Yes.
And had a different take on it.
Completely.
It was a problem here, it wasn't a problem here. And sometimes people, I think, paint a broad brush that over the state, something is an issue where it might just be community by community.
That's why we need to remember that there's a municipal lane and the state lane. We just had the tourism folks come before us about 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, maybe. And we had the tourism director for Providence and the tourism director for Block Island. And they were very different sort of ways of looking at short-term rentals. We didn't have Evan at this one. Evan spoke at a previous one, but it was like, what's going on? The impact on Block Island is completely different than the impact in Providence. Yeah. Completely different, So that's, as soon as I started thinking about them in two lanes, thinking became a little easier.
And all of this intertwines with all of the other issues. When you're speaking about older Rhode Islanders, many of the talk these days is aging in place, or the ADUs and the housing plays into that as much as everything else as well. So how do you tie all of these things together?
On the aging thing, it's hard.
Yeah,
it's real hard. I got to be honest with you.
It touches internet, it touches environment, it touches. Yeah.
Well, what I did was, and what I'm looking at is, I'm looking at the other states that have come up with these plans. And we're hoping to get some technical support from some of those states. I'm reaching out to try to get some help. They've done it in Massachusetts. They've done it in Vermont. They've put a plan together. They've chosen 5 or 6 top priorities. And those are the ones they've given to the legislature to say, these are the ones we think are really important for the next 5 to 10 years. I think we haven't chosen those yet. So I'm not getting ahead of myself. But in my opinion, I think the internet stuff is very important. I think the transportation is very important. And I think the language and the culture is very important. And we'll probably pick another 3. And we'll do that we'll do that sometime next year. And then once we hone in on what we really, after hearing all this, the study commission still has not heard from inner city folks, bilingual aging folks. That's one of the things on our agenda. There's the Governor's Commission on Aging. We haven't heard mental health yet. We haven't looked at disability. So we have about at least 7 or 8 major topics to address. And then I think we'll just take some kind of an inventory and figure out the top 6. And we'll look at how Massachusetts, Vermont, and Connecticut rolled it into a public document. And that's where I'm trying to go.
Rep. Carson, bringing it back to Newport, obviously City Council came to the legislator, to you, to put this $98.5 million bonds on the ballot.
Uh-huh.
And any thoughts on it? Obviously, they asked, you acted. Any thoughts on question number 6?
Oh, I support it 100%. I have something here because I knew you would address it. This is money that we need in Newport. According to I know that there's some discussion about how the money's spent, and that's not my decision. But at this point in time, these are some of the places the money could be spent, right? So it's road and sidewalks, it's Easton's Beach, it's the soil over behind the school, it's the city share of Cliff Walk, it's Parati Park, which is really important, it's Easton's Pond, it's stormwater management in the North End. These are real things. These are real issues. And so we need to pass this thing and get some money into these infrastructure improvements. They're all infrastructure improvements, basically.
And if people want to hear more, they can go to my interview with the city manager from last Wednesday, where we spent a good 30 minutes talking about it. And something that I don't think is being promoted enough, if I was going to give any feedback, is how much matching funds there are to those dollars that are on that bonds. Is, if a lot of it can be matched. And he talked about, it can be multiplied many times in the city. So
Yeah, well, the 3.75 million for Cliff Walk is matched by the 3 million in the green bond. So right there, it's $6 million.
yeah. Excellent. Rep, anything else that we did not get to yet today?
Well, there's the arts bond, which I was the sponsor of, and that's number 5. And I hope people will vote for that. Worked with the ballet folks in town for that, and they're really thrilled about that. And that's going to be money for them to put into the building on Broadway, which they've been working on. And so, I'm really encouraging folks to support that bond because, the ballet company really elevates the cultural community in Newport. People have been working over there for 20 or 30 years, and they've got that site on Upper Broadway now, and that's going to be a significant sort of resource for the city, once they open up the theater up there in the school. So I hope folks will support that. Going into the next session, I will do my survey in January. You'll probably get it around the 3rd week of the year and see where people are at on issues. And I'm probably hold a constituent meeting right after that to discuss what the feedback is from people, so people will hear about that. And then I just move into driving to Providence 2 and 3 days a week.
There you go. Session
starts at night.
First week of January?
7th. It's the first Tuesday. And this year it's the 7th, which is great because you get a week off after the holidays. Last year it was the 1st, which was like, God, the 1st. But this year it's the 7th. So I get it. But, I'm already planning to go to the State House that week. Like I said, that's when I'll be meeting with the attorneys and drafting bills, because it sometimes takes 2 and 3 meetings with an attorney to draft a bill and get the language right. Even at that, we don't get the language right all the time. Yeah. And if I have something in the vicinity of like 10 or 15 bills, that's a lot of work. You really got to sit down and read them, and meet with them, and do research in other states. So anyway, that's where I'm going to start going in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Excellent. Rep Carson, contact information if people need to reach out to you about statewide constituent services.
Real easy. Lauren Carson, www.laurencarson.com. I do have a mailing list and people can sign up for it there. I don't overrun you with mail, maybe a holiday greeting, an election prompt. The survey would go out. I would say I've contacted folks through my mailing list about maybe 10 times a year, maybe even 8 times a year. So there's that. My phone number's there. You can call me. Like I said, to begin this, I do, I'm available. People will call me and they'll go, "You answered?" I'll be like, "Yeah, I did." And then they'll say, "I thought like your secretary would answer." I don't have one. Yeah. I'm it, so, I would just assume people call me, because sometimes people send me an email and it's complicated and it's long and I got to give them the backstory. So I often say, just call me. And if you want to talk through a traffic problem on Memorial, or you want to talk about a stoplight, by the post office, call me about that and we'll try to get to the bottom of it. So, my phone number is right there. You can't miss it on the website.
Excellent. Well, Rep, thank you for taking the time to chat with us, and please keep in touch as we warm up to the session, as we start the session in a couple months.
Yes, and one quick thing. I did see you printed the press release about the Aquidneck Island Climate Caucus.
Yes, Sunday.
Yes, it's Sunday, and that's something that Terry Courtvan and I created. We meet on Sunday evenings every couple of weeks, and even every couple of months, and we bring in folks that can talk to the community about climate-related issues. I'm going to refer them to your article, because off the top of my head, that's the best place. And you need to register in advance. And then what happens is we'll send you the link to the Zoom meeting. It's Sunday, 6:30 to 7:30. This week, we're having the Office of Energy Resources to talk about energy programs for homeowners. And then next month, we're having the Aquidneck Island Land Trust to talk about their $2 million resilience grant. So we have a couple really fun things lined up. And then in January, we always have Sheldon Whitehouse come on. So we got a couple things going on with that. And for folks that want to stay connected to their friends and neighbors across the island and climate issues, this is a good conversation.
Excellent. Well, that story is available on whatsupnoop.com. It will also be in our newsletter tomorrow. So
super. Okay.
Check it out. All right, Rep. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You have a good day. Take care, everybody.
You as well. That is Rep. Lauren Carson. I want to thank her for taking the time to join us. Again, she will be on your ballot if you are in Newport, as well as the questions we talked about, question 6, as well as question 5, all the questions on there as well. If you missed any portion of this conversation, want to watch it again, want to share it, all available on whatsupnuke.com. Thanks for reaching out.